I'm Lindsey Parry. I'm the official coach to the Comrades Marathon Association, and many of you may be aware, but many people are also equally unaware that this year, due to some roadworks on the route and some safety concerns, the Comrades Marathon will be 877 meters further in 2015. Now this obviously has a significant impact, especially for people that are targeting specific medals, and really I guess the people most affected are those that are just trying to finish the Comrades Marathon. Those that have run Comrades before will know that I sell pacing bands at the Comrades Expo, and those are going to require some adjustment now, and we certainly don't have time to do that and get them printed and get them ready. So for a start, we have a really cool innovation this year where we will have the traditional wrist slap bands that we have had in the past. We will also be having some tattoos. So just so that everybody has a good idea of what I'm talking about and what they look like. Traditionally, those will be the slap bands. You have different colors for the different medals. You come along to the expo, we have a chat about pacing strategy and how it all works, and these will still be available, hopefully, and I'm not certain yet, but we did try and get some ones made in the Comrades traditional colours, and for those of you that are not South African, these are also the Kaiser Chiefs colours, so Comrades have been behind Chiefs since the beginning. But yeah, this is hopefully the colour that the bands will be this year, and we'll then have a little bit of a special twist with it being the 90th. And finally, we have then got in some tattoos that will fit really nicely on the forearm, nice and big, easy to see, and we've only got a limited number of those, so if you like that idea, get to the expo early, come and buy those, and if they sell well, that's what we'll be using in future. So on to this year's race, and the 4 medals that the mortals go for. I'm not going to interfere with the Wally Hayward, but will be the silver medal, which is running Comrades in under 7.5 hours, Bill Rowan running Comrades under 9 hours, a bronze medal which is finishing under 11 hours, and then finally Vic Clapham for all those that successfully complete the race in under 12 hours. Now these are all going to require some adjustment, and I'm going to go through in not too much detail, but enough detail that you can adjust these yourself once you've purchased them from the expo. So if we look at the silver medal pace band, you needed to run an average of about 5 minutes 10 per kilometer to get your medal. You now need to run at 5:07 per kilometer. Now, in previous podcasts, I've spoken about not making too much of a fuss about the extra distance and kind of accepting that you're going to go through halfway in whatever number slower depending on the medal, and in the case of silver that would be just over 4 minutes, sort of 4:24, 4:25 slower. But unfortunately, when I looked at that, it's an oversimplification, because if you're using a pace band, we've got times at certain points, but Comrades marker boards are all counting backwards. So the first marker board that you are going to see on race day is going to say 87 kilometers to go. Alright, which means that on the pace band, where in the past you would have only traveled 2 kilometers when you got to 85, you're now going to have traveled 2.72 kilometers. And so it has a knock-on effect through the entire pacing chart, and I can just see people going into all kinds of panic when they're already 4 minutes behind, or whatever the number is on the medal, when they get to the first marker and they realize, hang on, Lindsey said that the difference is only going to come in Pinetown. So I have gone and adjusted the pacing charts. At the expo I'm going to have posters, but let's get to it. You'll then see that you're going to go through 3 minutes slower at the first checkpoint on the silver medal. Now, silver medalists are fairly good runners, so the way that I've done it, knowing that you guys are pretty strong, is that I've said that all we really need to do to get back on track and ensure that we get our silver medal at the end is make up 15 seconds per segment. Okay, if you go and calculate the segments, the first segment is 2.72, and we're not going to make up any time there. We're going to start making the time up after that, and the segments are between 10 and 15 kilometers, and the final segment is 7.5 kilometers. So that really is it in a nutshell. And so you'll see, if you compare to the pacing chart, we go 11:14, 1 hour 29, 1 hour 32, 45. Here we 1 hour 54, so we 1 hour 56, 30. So on and so forth. And you're, as I said, catching up pretty much 15 seconds per segment. It gets a little more complicated as we get into the slower medals for two reasons. Number one, once we move into the slower medals, you're not quite as proficient runners, probably haven't done quite the same amount of training, so therefore sustaining that average faster pace the whole way through may be problematic. And the second and crucial factor is that you lose time at the start, because Comrades is not mat to mat, it's gun to gun. So it does unfortunately mean that the further back we go, the more pressure the marginal people will be to get their medals. So we're moving from a 6:12 average to a 6:09, which in reality is probably closer to a 6:07, because we've got to make up that time lost getting over the start line. Now the extra time means that we're going to lose roughly 5.5 minutes overall. So in other words, we need to make up 5.5 minutes overall, plus the time you've lost for bull run. That means you're looking at around about 6 minutes, and it means that we therefore have to make up roughly 30 seconds per segment. Now you'll notice there are two asterisks on the side, and that's because those are the two sections with the most downhill in them, and the two sections that are probably going to be the easiest to make your time up. So you may not make up 30 seconds on each segment, and in fact you may well struggle once you go past 65 k's to go and you're going up Fields Hill. But don't panic, because there are points along the route where you can pick up a little bit more time. But if we do it fairly consistently, and we look at 30 seconds per segment, which again over 10 kilometers means 3 seconds per k faster, and over the longer segments it means 2 or just over 2 seconds per k. So if we break it down like that, it makes it much more manageable, and we effectively catch up all the way to the finish line. So again, just to run through a couple, you'll see that at 85 k's to go, it was 15 minutes, we're now going to be 17.5 minutes. At 70 k's to go, as opposed to 149, 150, 120, so on and so forth, and catching up the extra time as we run down into Drummond and as we run down towards the start of Polly Shorts. Those will be our segments where we'll catch up time. Now, one other thing I do need to add is that across all the medals you'll notice, or particularly with silver, that we may have lost more time than, for example, at the Bull Rowan. And that is because, again, with silver athletes being much better runners, I had built in less fat to begin with than I had in this one, and that's why the change is not quite as great. Okay, as I said earlier, as we move into the slower medals, unfortunately it takes us longer and longer to cross the line. So for the bronze, I've already had to factor in 4 minutes plus minus to get across the line. You're also now going to have 6 or just over 6 minutes added on for the detour. And so we effectively need to make up 10 minutes across the course. So where we needed a 7:31, we're looking, a 7:35 overall average, you're looking at 7:31, which in reality is closer to 7:25 because we need to make up that 10 minutes. But the principle is exactly the same. We are going to make up 30 seconds per K all the way, not per K, sorry, 30 seconds per segment all the way until you get to the finish line. And so again, if you are marginal, you must accept that on the day it's going to be quite stressful, because you're going to be looking at each of these points and going, well, hang on, am I getting my 30 seconds per segment, which again, to remind everybody, is 10 to 15 Ks for most of the segments. Okay, so we're not talking about an enormous amount of catching up and I'm giving you a fair amount of time. And for you, the best time to make up time, but without screaming down. Okay, so it's very important that for the bronze people to realize running down into Drummond at halfway, you are not trying to run as fast as you can, but you are going to try and use that downhill to catch up just a little bit more time than you otherwise would have on a normal Comrades, because that will take a little bit of the pressure off you in the second half. You will also have, like the Bill Row and that section, going down to poly shorts, but traditionally as we move further back in the medals, people are tiring more and more towards the back end of the race, and you probably don't want to leave yourself with too much extra to catch up at the end. So to give you again just a bit of an example, you would have been going through 2Ks in 20 minutes. You're now going to be going through 2.72 Ks in 24 minutes and 30 seconds. When you get to 70 Ks, 25 minutes flat as opposed to 2 hours 21, so you can see there that you have made up your 30 seconds. And for all the medals, I had brought you in fairly safely, say just under the 11:59 or the 10:59 in this case. Now you're probably going to be a lot closer to the 11 hours. And remember, I am talking to the marginal medals. Those of you that are going for 5 or 10 minutes under will be under a little bit less pressure, but the pace band gives you a really good idea of where should I be if I still want to get Bill Road, and you don't want to fall too far behind those and give yourself too much time to catch up. Finally, the finishes. These are the ones that are under the most pressure, unfortunately. You are going to lose the most time, so we're talking about 7 minutes that you're going to lose, plus your 6 minutes that you're going to take to cross the finish line. So your per K average gone down from 8:16 to 8:12, and in reality probably closer to about 8:03 needs to be your average running speed through the race. Obviously some Ks slower going uphill, some Ks faster on the flats and the downs. So very importantly, Comrades has extended the halfway cutoff. Now that was one of my biggest concerns, because with all the other medals, as I've said before, I've spread the catching up over the entire route and not tried to catch it up in the first half or too much in any one particular segment. For the finishers, if they hadn't extended that cutoff time, it would have meant that you would have had to catch up that entire 13 minutes in the first half of the race, and would have meant you would have needed to run much closer to 7:45, 7:50 to get through halfway in 6 hours. So it's very important, I can't stress that enough. For the finishers medals, you have to stretch catching up that distance as far as you possibly can. Because if you go too hard at the beginning, when you get to 60 and 65 Ks, you're going to have done too much work, you're not going to be able to sustain it, and you're going to miss cut-off points late in the race or quit altogether. So we are going to take our time, and for you, what is significant is that we're going to take you through Drummond in over 6 hours, in about 6:02. So we're going to catch up. You're about 4.5 minutes again shy of what you should be when you go through 2.72 kilometers, and we're only going to catch up just about half of that by the time you get to halfway. And then obviously in the second half of the route, when you are a little more tired but the route is a lot easier, we will then look up to catch up the other half of that and get you to your finisher's medal, which is just under 12 hours. Okay, good luck for Comrades. I will be at the expo for the 3 days. I am going to be doing a route recce on Thursday afternoon with my elite athletes. So unfortunately Thursday afternoon 2 o'clock until about 5 o'clock I won't be available, but I will be there for the rest of the days, Thursday morning, whole day Friday, whole day Saturday. Hopefully this will help you to make adjustments so that we can talk about other things like race day nutrition, talk about different points on the route, perhaps how your training's gone. But I will be there to help people to do these calculations and to transfer that with a permanent marker onto those pacing charts. And remember that the pacing charts, the money we make is going to charity, so I hope to meet everybody and I hope to see people buying loads of pacing bands on Thursday, Friday and Saturday.